We're dealing with a myriad of issues. I was just talking to Josh Green, the governor down in Hawaii, who had some ideas around some land use concerns he has around speculators.
No.
Look, I would take
her over. It's horrible that we have to do that.
I could never vote for Newsom.
No,
I just
Kamala.
can't. I would just say that his leadership in California is good reason to brush him off for the loser that he really is.
Gavin Newsom walked in thinking this would be a friendly discussion. Then Ana Kasparian showed up, fully prepared, with sharp points, receipts, and zero mercy. This wasn't just a clever response. It turned into a masterclass in public embarrassment. 1 second, Newsom looked relaxed and confident. The next, you could almost see him wondering how to escape without making it worse. And the craziest part? Ana did it all calmly, without shouting or losing control. This was the takedown Gavin never expected but completely brought on himself.
Your car's gonna get broken into, okay? You're gonna get robbed. Using taxpayer money, funneling it to nonprofits so they can literally buy crack pipes and hand them out at Skid Row. There's video evidence of that. Paying incredibly high taxes that go to what? So yeah, I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it. And honestly, just experiencing what I've seen on the ground in California has made me question a lot about left-wing ideology.
If you're enjoying this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. It helps more than you might think. Gavin Newsom started the day believing it was business as usual. Hair perfectly styled, suit sharp, and that polished smile ready for the cameras. He probably even admired himself in the mirror before walking out. Then Kasparian stepped in. Not loudly, not dramatically, but with the calm anger of someone who's had enough of California's golden boy. The same politician selling himself as a progressive champion while getting cozy with billionaires and brushing aside real problems.
In 2014, voters in California overwhelmingly supported a ballot measure to support building more reservoirs in the state in order to bulk up our water infrastructure because we live in a drought-prone state. That passed in 2014. Funding was attached to it. You want to know how many reservoirs have been built since 2014? Zero. This state is an utter joke because of the people who are governing it. Gavin Newsom right now is at the top of that list.
To be fair, Gavin has been playing the political balancing act for a long time. He's perfected that smooth, middle-of-the-road style that says, "I really care about climate change," while quietly signing off on more oil permits over brunch. He's sold himself as California's wine-sipping savior. But here's the issue. The wine tastes sour, and the vineyards are literally on fire.
This is what I was surprised about. I did not expect Donald Trump to flip 10 counties in California from blue to red. But I guess I shouldn't have been surprised about that either. Because when you look at the conditions that people are living in a Democrat-controlled state, well, yeah, you can understand why people are turning their backs on the Democratic Party. You can understand why people are frustrated at the corruption, at the loss of $24 billion that was allocated to help the homeless, when homelessness only exploded during that time, and that money is now unaccounted.
Then Ana stepped in, clearly running on pure political adrenaline instead of her morning coffee. Any illusion left of Gavin as the golden boy of Democratic politics vanished instantly. Gone. Wiped out. In seconds, he turned into a living warning of what happens when you underestimate a journalist who's been saving the receipts since your very first campaign slogan.
What a President Newsom candidacy look like in a general election, not just pandering to the left?
Yeah, good question. He would sell out the American people to corporate interests, just like he did with PG&E, starting fires and destroying countless Californians' lives as a result of that. He bailed them out. He totally bailed them out. He has provided protection for them, even though they absolutely refused to update their century-year-old equipment, which everyone knew was going to lead to devastating wildfire.
It began with a smirk, maybe a small eyebrow raise, but then Kasparian went straight to work with sharp, focused intensity. She ripped through his polished image like it was held together by cheap tape and exhausted PR teams. This wasn't an emotional rant. It was a calculated takedown delivered like commentary. Clear, brutal, and somehow still funny. What made it hit even harder was how calm she stayed. No yelling, no dramatic moves, just sharp analysis that landed harder than any viral clip. Gavin loves to talk about caring for working people, but Kasparian pulled back the curtain like a magician, exposing every trick. After that, it was impossible to look at him without seeing the wires, the mirrors, and the setup behind the act. His progressive image collapsed the moment it met real-world facts, and the internet noticed. Because this wasn't only about Gavin. It was about every politician who smiles for cameras and signs harmful policies when no one's watching. Every leader who treats people like a photo opportunity instead of real lives that matter.
Gavin Newsom, in every single interview I've seen him do, has passed the buck, even though he is the governor of this state.
Yeah.
He is pathetic. He's a snake. He's like the slimiest Democratic politician, certainly on a local level. But what we have seen is mismanagement of epic proportions, and the mere existence, and it is real, the existence of climate change should not be utilized as a talking point in order to pass the buck, in order to deflect blame, in order to refuse to take any personal responsibility for how poorly this state has been governed for several years.
Ana lit the match, and suddenly everyone realized they'd been sitting on a pile of political dry wood. The smart part was how she did it. No shouting, no big dramatic moments. She just laid out the facts, connected the dots, and let the nonsense speak for itself. It felt like a cold slap wrapped in a calm presentation. Gavin, this is karma. Her name is Ana, and she's here to point out your contradictions. Now let's pause and look at Gavin Newsom's political image. He's the guy trying to please everyone at once. A progressive star for cable news. Remember when he bragged about California leading the country in green energy? Sounds nice until you notice the many drilling permits approved on his watch. A high-speed rail project that feels more like a myth than a plan. And an environmental passion that seems to disappear the moment powerful tech donors enter the room.
Can I curse? I don't know if I can.
Please,
Okay.
you must. It's a necessity.
So, Democratic establishment candidates are full of shit. And I need people to understand that. And we need to get out of this like vicious pendulum swing cycle where we go from one terrible administration to another terrible administration. They just have different branding. But in the end, they do nothing for ordinary people. And that's what people are hungry for. I think that's part of what explains the popularity of Zoran Mamdani in this mayoral race in New York City.
Ana wasn't nitpicking small details. She was exposing a clear pattern. The famous Gavin shuffle. Big progressive promises on stage, followed by weak action behind closed doors. Most voters might miss those quiet contradictions, but Ana didn't. She came with proof and the biggest spotlight in the room. One of the hardest hits was this. She didn't only challenge his policies, she went after the mindset behind them. The idea that looking polished matters more than telling the truth. That if you speak confidently and drop buzzwords like equity, no one will bother to ask where that equity actually went. Spoiler alert, it's nowhere to be found, and Gavin had no answer. No sharp comeback, no clever post, no last-minute statement that didn't sound rushed and shaky. His silence said everything, and it only made Ana's takedown hit even harder.
A native Angelino. I was born and raised in California. I love my state. I love the people in the state. But it is an absolute wasteland right now. Every freeway bridge is full of people living in tents. There's excrement on our sidewalks. It's unsafe. Crime has gone up. And when it comes to coronavirus, I mean, the fish rots from the head down. Let me just mention.
Because when someone delivers hard truths with calm precision, there are only 3 ways to react: panic, denial, or acting like you never heard it. Gavin chose option 3, but the internet wasn't letting it slide. People hit replay over and over. Clips of Ana's takedown spread across Twitter, TikTok, Reddit, and YouTube. Pretty much every place online where a good public roasting gets attention. Memes followed, reaction videos poured in, and even careful political commentators started referencing her points. Well, almost word for word, because saying it exactly might break Gavin's entire media team. And honestly, he earned it. Not because he asked for it, but because he's treated his office like a stepping stone to higher ambition instead of a chance to solve real problems. California isn't a campaign prop. Yet somehow, he's turned it into a massive backdrop for his political glow-up.
Oh, I'm sure he really does find it funny. He's not bothered by it at all. You just heard the bitter statements of a snake who unfortunately serves as the governor of California. Some like to refer to him as Gavin Newsom. I like to refer to him as a smarmy failure of a politician out of the state that I was born and raised in. Nonetheless, Gavin Newsom was fighting hard to be the guy who stepped in to replace Joe Biden if he dropped out of the race, of course.
Meanwhile, Kasparian sat there like, oh, you thought nobody was watching? That no one noticed the fancy fundraisers, the policy flip-flops, or the staged photo ops with just enough diversity to tick a box? She noticed, and made sure everyone else did too. Kasparian didn't yell, throw things, or raise her voice. No, she went for something far more powerful. Sharp logic fueled by quiet fury and sarcasm strong enough to power a Tesla. Kasparian tore into Gavin Newsom's political image like she was performing an autopsy on his career. Live, unfiltered, and precise. Her attack wasn't emotional, it was intellectual combat. She exposed his contradictions like an intern shredding documents on a Friday afternoon. She called out the hypocrisy of a governor who claims to be progressive while stalling on universal health care, tenant protections, and the homelessness crisis. One pointed line summed it up. You can't run a state like a Netflix trailer. Flashy promises with zero follow-through.
He's so cool and relatable in his genes. And but like between Cuomo and Newsom, these are actually two really good examples of people who represent the Democratic Party establishment who have not fully reckoned with their unpopularity during the COVID crisis and are now sort of trying to be, as powerful as they were before without, I don't know, maybe actually even being seriously introspective as opposed to whatever the hell that was.
You're absolutely right, okay, in your analysis. And let me just say, you know that I like you when I'm willing to sit through a podcast episode featuring Gavin Newsom just to prepare for this. Okay,
God bless.
I can't stand him. I can't stand his raspy voice. And it's not for any superficial reason other than the fact that I live in California. Mm-hmm. I've had the displeasure of experiencing what his leadership actually looks like.
Then came the real takedown, Newsom's political cowardice. According to Kasparian, he's got all the ambition of a presidential hopeful, but none of the spine. He waits for polls, headlines, and wealthy donors to set his values for him. Leadership isn't about timing your morals, she suggested. It's about actually having some. No yelling, no theateristics, just a calm, precise scolding that could make even a governor want to crawl under his $1,000 suit and disappear. And the internet went wild. Reddit lit up like a Christmas tree with threads titled Kasparian just nuked. Newsom and keeping it real goes supernova. Even centrist pundits couldn't resist quoting her from Gavin's side. Meanwhile, crickets from his office, no words, no passive-aggressive tweets. The silence was louder than any mic drop. No spin, no excuses, just awkward, measured quiet that said it all. That one really stung.
That while Americans are encouraged to shelter in place, encouraged to practice social distancing, no eating indoors at restaurants, he was seen at the French Laundry meeting up with his lobbyist buddies. That is unacceptable. I have not seen competent leadership from Gavin Newsom, and I will state on this show, every single member of my family signed our names, provided our signatures to recall.
But here's the twist. It wasn't just drama. It was a reckoning. A moment that exposed the growing split on the left between the polished, media-trained elites and the unapologetic truth-tellers who say what others won't. Kasparian didn't just call out Gavin. She called out a whole generation of Democrats who campaign on hope but govern on hedge fund fumes. She wasn't only holding him accountable, she was holding all of us to a higher standard, demanding more honesty, more action, and a lot less hair gel. The base is restless. People aren't buying the polished image anymore, and the internet fact-checks everything in real time. Kasparian tapped directly into that frustration. Clean, sharp, and without mercy.
And now some are noticing, look, he's not really doing the type of campaigning for Kamala Harris that he was doing for Joe Biden. What's going on here? Now, of course, we all know what's going on. Newsom was engaging in that campaigning, not for Joe Biden's sake, but in order to increase his name recognition in case he found himself in a situation where he'd be tapped to replace Joe Biden after he drops out. Now, Newsom went from campaigning hard for Biden to barely campaigning at all on behalf of Kamala Harris, so much so that Democratic operatives are now questioning whether his role as a national surrogate for Harris is really something they can lean on. They're questioning if it's even a thing.
You could almost see Gavin's presidential dreams crumbling in midair. He's got the looks, the ambition, and the donor network, but he might have lost the trust of progressives who just watched one their own dismantle him for not following through. And what made it hurt even more? Kasparian credibility, something money can't buy. She's not yelling from the sidelines. She knows exactly what he's pretending to be. When the dust settled, one thing was clear. Gavin Newsom will survive. Politicians always do. But his polished progressive image, that took a hit no amount of hair gel can fix. And Kasparian? She didn't just win online. She completely dominated it.
This job has been so difficult because he's dealt with both the COVID situation and unemployment and wildfires and racial justice issues all in the same year. And he's sort of done the best that he can in trying to deal with all these. What specifically, Anna, from a policy perspective, would you like to have seen him done differently versus what he has actually done?
First of all, I'd get real aggressive about building housing immediately, right? Putting porta potties under freeway bridges for homeless people to use is not a solution to this problem. I would also find ways to ensure that businesses have the, economic relief necessary to remain stable throughout this process. So if
she reminded everyone what real political accountability looks like. It's not loud, it's not flashy, and it's definitely not backed by big money. It's honest, sharp, and completely done with playing nice. So next time Gavin steps up to the mic with that trademark smirk, maybe he'll pause just for a moment. Remember the day Kasparian didn't just call him out, she put his whole brand on trial. The verdict? Guilty of performative progressivism. No closing statements, no defense, just a long, awkward silence. And a permanent mark on the record of a man who thought style could outrun substance. Spoiler alert, it can't.